Let's get back to our top story. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton traveling to Egypt this morning to push for a truce between Israel and Gaza's Hamas rulers after negotiations broke down. Is there any way to salvage this and avoid an all-out ground war? Is that even a good idea? Maybe not. Here now, Ambassador Dan Gillerman, former Israeli ambassador to the United Nations and a Fox News contributor. You're in the maybe not. And in fact, you're in the not category. You don't think a ceasefire really makes sense from the Israel point of view. Why?
Well, Greg, today is a very special day for me because the bus bombing that happened in Tel Aviv was literally 200 yards from my home.
Oh, my.
And I'm going back to Israel tonight. I'm going back to a very uncertain and very ominous situation. And naturally, you know, anybody in that position would say, let's put a stop to it. Let's have some peace and quiet. But you have to understand who we're dealing with. We're dealing with a barbaric, evil, brutal terror organization that is intent on destroying Israel and has amassed all these weapons in order to try and kill as many civilians, including women and children, as possible. So I don't see a ceasefire doing any good. I appreciate the efforts of Secretary Clinton. I have great respect for her, and I'm sure that she and the president really want to put an end to this. But, you know, her going to Cairo is in a way like her going to Afghanistan and Pakistan, trying to get Al-Qaeda to stop terrorizing the world. We've got this group that has to be eliminated, that has to be finished. We cannot live in a neighborhood where we have a group of people who are dedicated to murder and to making children live under attack and under threat every day, live in shelters and not go to school. You know, children in this country will be celebrating Thanksgiving and soon be hearing the sound of jingle bells. Children in Israel over the last 12 years, because of Hamas, have lived to the sound of sirens.
Rocket sirens.
This is a reality.
And explosions, because many of them have hit. Look, Israel engaged in a ground incursion into Gaza 2008, 2009. How would this be any different?
It has to be different, because obviously the ground incursion into Gaza last time was not with the intention of eliminating Hamas.
This time it would be. How would you eliminate Hamas? I mean, really, can it be done?
I believe it can be done. It can obviously be done at a very high cost. It would probably be done with a lot of civilian casualties, which so far we've tried to avoid.
That would only enrage the Arab world against Israel.
Well, let me tell you something about the Arab world, Greg. I mean, you know, I served at the UN for 6 years, and I was there during the Second Lebanon War, and I was also very active during the Operation Cast Lead, which was in Gaza. I cannot even start telling you the number of presidents, prime ministers, kings, emirs, and sultans from the Arab world who came to me and said, go girl, finish the job, don't stop. Believe me, there is no sympathy in the Arab world for Hamas. Hamas is supported by Iran. The only ones who want to see them survive and prevail are the Iranians. The rest of the Arab world would celebrate, even if publicly they said something else, if Hamas was gone.
You know, I spent a lot of time in the West Bank and down in Gaza. I met with terrorists. I met with the families of homicide bombers. And the one distinct impression I walked away with is that, you know, for every terrorist, there's 10 waiting to fill his or her shoes. So, again, I ask the question, can Hamas really be stamped out?
Look, I think you've been to the West Bank and you've been to Gaza, and you've seen the difference. The West Bank today is thriving. Cities like Nablus and Ramallah and Jenin have great economies, great safety, great security. And I believe at the end of the day that most Palestinians want to live like that. They don't want to live in this world's largest prison Hamas has created in Gaza, be hostages, live on a floor above a missile. And you know, when you go to sleep with a missile, don't be surprised if you don't wake up in the morning. But that's the reality. These people are using their own people as hostages. They have no value for human life, neither ours nor their own. In a way, they would love a ground invasion because they would try and kill as many Israelis as possible and couldn't care less about the number of Palestinians killed. In fact, they probably think the pictures of, you know, killed civilians would serve them well. So this is a very, very brutal, evil enemy. And as you said, I mean, there may be others coming. They think they all think they've got 72 virgins waiting up there for them. But I think we should do everything to root them out, because as long as they are there, Israel will not be able to live under that threat.
Israeli Ambassador Dan Gillerman, always good to see you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Heather?